Hi, and thanks for tuning in. This is a mini practice that I designed, a great work from home break to release the hip flexors. Hip flexors are the main movers of the legs. They connect from the top of the thigh bone, move through the front of the pelvis, and then connect to the vertebrae and the sides of the pelvis. We'll get tight in the hip flexors through sitting or something like riding your bicycle, which is how my front hips got really tight. And for years, when I was trying to release my hip flexors, I was overstretching them, getting strong sensation there, especially at the bottom fibers of the hip flexors. And through that overstretching, I actually got more tightness in the hip flexors over time. That reason is that when muscles are overstretched, they can often contract and harden to prevent the body from any injury. So an overstretch over time can make us tighter instead of giving us flexibility gains. All right, so you'll need a yoga block today, and a yoga mat will also be helpful. And if your knees are sensitive when you're kneeling, a blanket or towel to cushion your knees. And we're going to start in a bridge pose on our back. So lie back, have your block nearby, and set your feet, your legs up, hip width, parallel, your ankles underneath your knees. And we'll take a supported bridge here. You lift the hips, and you have 3 height options of the block. I'm going to go for the middle height option. I'm placing the block right at the sacrum. That's that long, flat bone at the base of the spine, so that the glutes hang off the far end of the block. There's a softening here in the groins where the hip flexors pass through, and it's very comfortable. I don't recommend bridge on a block if you have bulging discs in your low back or if you've had herniation in the discs. But if your spine is healthy, this should be very comfortable. If not, try moving the block maybe down to a lower height. Now, part of the reason for overstretch is that I've seen over time is having the pelvis tucked under. And if we have the block too low on the back body here, it tucks the pelvis under like this. And that shape of the pelvis tucking pushes the thigh bones forward into the hip flexors. And I think a lot of us have been getting that overstretch in the hip flexors because when we tuck the pelvis under, frankly, there's sensation here in the front hips. And when we move through our day and we feel tightness in the front hips, it makes sense to think we want to get some sensation there to stretch. Well, what we'll look at today is not all sensation is created equally. And with too strong of sensation here, our body is actually signaling us that we're overstretching. And we'll back out of that. And instead of chasing that big sensation in the hip flexors, I want us to orient towards space and openness in our movements. So I have the glutes off the block, this softening here in the front groin. And I'm going to keep that as I gently tone the belly just a bit, drawing the navel in, pulling the bottom front ribs back into the abdominal wall. So I feel like the back of the torso can stretch up away from the pelvis without tucking the hips under. Let's just stay here for a few more breaths. Whatever is comfortable with your arms is great. I'm just allowing the palms to turn up with my arms at my sides. Take 2 more breaths. And then just lift high enough off your block that you can slide that out to the side. Make your way all the way down. And take a full body stretch. Extend your legs out straight, heels on the mat, legs muscular, ankles together. Reach your arms overhead. Push through your heels. And reach through your fingertips. Legs active, muscular, just get long here on the mat. Now bending your elbows out to the side, set up a cactus arm. If in cactus for you the hands are like airborne, I want you to do a T position, just arms straight out to the sides instead. And then bend your knees and slide the feet up. Let's take the feet a little wide, almost as wide as a yoga mat. And drop both knees to the left so the right hip comes up off the mat. Now cross in a figure 4, this bottom left ankle just over the right knee. And lift that knee up into the pressure of the foot. So the knee, the ankle engage into each other. Use the left ankle to pull. Think of it like a traction. You're pulling that top knee long out of the hip. So we're creating a split here from the right hip. One direction, extending long through the right knee, through that line of the leg bone. And then gently pulling the belly back, the bottom right ribs back, so we can extend the right side of the torso long out of the hip. So from the right hip, get a feel of extending in 2 directions. Release that side, come to the center, feet wide, knees to the right. Cross the right ankle just above the left knee. Lift the knee up into your foot until those 2 points engage and connect with each other. And then traction action, pull the right ankle. So from the left hip, through the thigh, through the knee, you feel extension. And then from the left hip, extend the other way, belly back, back ribs, front ribs stretch up away from the pelvis. Lift your chin to keep your throat open. One more breath. And then release this. Roll yourself through your side so you can press up and bring it all the way up to stand. From standing, take a wide stance. Bring your feet quite wide so you can turn the right foot out. We'll take a variation of side angle pose. Bend your right knee. Check that the right heel is lined up with the arch of the back foot. Now I'm doing the mirror image of you. So it's your right leg and you come down with your right forearm at your thigh. Bring the left arm up overhead. Any pinching in the hip flexor, and sometimes if they've been really bound, they'll catch and you'll get some compression there. Do it this way instead with your palm on your thigh. That'll help you lift the belly, lift the front of the right hip, and create some space there. Now, similar work, and we'll do this in all of our stretches that we worked in our bridge. From the left hip, we're going to split the action. Stretch down through the left foot and pull ribs back, lengthening the back waist up out of the pelvis. All right, come on up to stand and let's switch sides. Turn the right toes in, left toes out. I'm going to show this variation with the hand. And you can have the thumb on the inside or the outside, near the knee or more up on the thigh, wherever helps you make space. So the thigh goes down and the belly lifts up. And then bring the right arm overhead. Check that your back hip is in line with the knee and the ankle. You just want a nice straight line there so you can extend from the right hip down through that foot. And then lift the belly, the low back long out of the pelvis. That's it. And then inhale, take it up to stand, step your feet in. From here, come down for a lunge. Bring the right knee to your mat and the left foot forward. This is a pretty short lunge. We want the front shin vertical, the back thigh vertical, pretty compact front to back. Bring your left hand to your left hip and pull the hip back and down. So it doesn't feel like it's hiking higher than the right. You want the pelvis square side to side, right arm up by the ear. This is our same action, pelvis down, rib cage up. Don't let the front ribs splay. Ribs pull in. So the neutral rib cage stretches up, reach through the fingertips and the thumb. Okay, release and just switch. So left knee down, right foot forward. Pretty compact shape. Right hand to the hip, tack the hip down. Extend your left arm up overhead. As the pelvis descends, pull the ribs back and lift. Feel how extending through this left thumb especially helps the back waist fill up. And then bring that to a close and make your way up to stand. We'll do a standing quad stretch here. So come somewhere where you have balance, like touching a wall or back of a couch. Stand on your left leg, bend your right knee, and pull that foot in for a quad stretch. Avoid letting the right knee move forward. Bring it back in line with the left. And then lift your belly, ribs back, so the back waist stays full. And you get that feel of the pelvis going down, the rib cage stretching up. And then release this side and switch. If the quads are tight and holding the foot is too much, you just need an extender. Use your strap or a loop around it. And don't let the knee widen. Gotta keep the thighs parallel. Belly in, knees together. Not touching, but at the same placement front to back. And then the ribs pull back, especially these bottom ribs, to give us a lift out of the lower back. And the tightness in the quads and the hip flexors often come together. And so we get into that bigger muscle group in the front body to help ease up the deeper and smaller muscles of the hip flexors. All right, bring that to a close. One more kneeling pose. Bring your left knee down and turn your right foot out to the side at an angle. I just have the foot a little bit ahead of my knee here. This pose, not a lunge. We want to keep the left hip stacked over the left thigh and the knee. Left arm up overhead. Like we did in our standing pose, hand can be at the thigh and create a little side bend here. Or you can come down right forearm to your thigh. Remember to keep the left hip wide. Pull the bottom ribs back. And then here's that same split from the pelvis down through the knee. And then lift the back waist, the ribs up out of the pelvis. Move your breath broad into the left ribs, in towards the left oblique and low back area. Come on up with an inhale and exhale to release. Right knee down, left leg out to the side. Reach your right arm overhead. Any pinching in this flexed hip, keep the palm at your thigh, maybe even very close to the hip joint. Push the thigh down, lift your belly up. So you have like a manual space maker there. As that starts to clear and your body learns how to lift the belly without hiking the hip up, then you can come down and create the side bend. Right hip stays broad over the thigh. This is such a great pose. It's really accessible and it creates such space through the oblique, but also this part of the hip flexor that connects to the rim of the pelvis, that's the iliacus. It can stretch the QL, quadratus lumborum, is a place that often is tight when the hip flexors are tight in the low back. And get that opening in the oblique and the wall of the abdomen as well. It's really one of my favorites. And then bring it up with an inhale and exhale, release. Now let's stretch out on the belly. So just lie front body down and adjust your legs straight back. For many of us when we lie down, the legs will be turned out. You might feel like the inner knee, the inner thigh connects to the mat, or the instep of the foot. So that's true for you. Just tuck the toes under, lift the knees, and adjust the legs, turning them in until you feel that you're on the fronts of the thighs, so the quads touch the mat.
And the legs are parallel, straight, like railroad tracks behind. And then don't let that change as you bend both knees. Reach back and hold the tops of your feet and do a double quad stretch. Pull the heels into your hips. Lift your belly so the tailbone lengthens, but don't allow the knees to splay. Do not turn the thighs out. Thighs stay parallel. Heels to hips. Big lift in the belly, again to stretch from the hips back through the knees. And then from the hips long, you can pull with the arms to lengthen your spine forward out of the pelvis. Release with a controlled exhale and rest your forehead on the backs of your hands, bending your elbows out to the sides. And if the double quad stretch is too tight, your legs just don't have enough mobility, just do one leg at a time. You can keep your forehead down and go here, or you can also pop up on the forearm if you need a little bit more space there. So when the hip flexors are binding and you're getting that pinch feeling in the front, remember that in general, we're gonna go for less sensation in the stretches there. And we wanna create extension from the hip through both directions. And with a careful practice of that over time, it's a great way to get some relief there in the front hips. I hope this practice helps. It'll make a great break in your workday. And be in touch if you have any questions. Thanks.